Hello, guys. A very warm welcome to session number 55. We'll be learning about some more aspects about WTO. In the last session, we have in this objective achievements of WTO challenges, India and WTO. To understand about the WTO and its working session, the students will get a crystal clear idea and help them to construct their own view about the working of WTO. What we have studied in the recap, that's a background, function, structure, and agreement of WTO. Objectives of WTO, that's very, very important. The objective of WTO is to set and enforce rules for international trade. The WTO always aims that there should be some common rules that every country should follow. So it also enforces them, and it has been successful in enforcing few of the rules for international trade, especially the MFN status consolidation. Though it was started by the GATT, the consolidation of those status was done by WTO, and they provide a forum for negotiating and monitoring further trade liberalization. Already, so much liberalization is there, but WTO always aims to get the maximum liberalization in trades. It wants the privatization, it wants the globalization, it wants the privatization, liberalization. Okay, but it takes some time, especially in India, for that to come because Indian society, Indian economy, it's still not ready to resolve trade disputes. One of the very important objectives of the WTO is always it keeps in mind that there should be the cordial relations between cordial trade relations between the countries. In case if there is any disputes, it has its own mechanism. It want to avoid the it doesn't want any trade disputes to arise at the first place. At the second place, in case it has arisen, it helps to resolve the trade disputes. It is the objective of WTO. It increase the transparency of the decision making process. It is also one of the objectives. We have seen that there is no transparency in decision making process, and to cooperate with other major international economic organizations. There are so many the different economic organizations. Even it has its it also have objective to cooperate with the major political organizations like UNO, because because economics is the economics and trade is very much related with the politics, and hence it always aims that there should be some kind of cooperation between all these institutions as well as between different countries to help developing country to help developing countries benefits fully from the global trading system. Developing countries, though on the papers they have always concentrated on the developing countries, but WTO to certain extent it has helped the countries, the developing countries, but most of the time it has fallen short of its commitments towards developing countries and the underdeveloped countries. These are the objectives. Let us see what are the achievements of WTO. Greater market orientation has become the general rule. Use of the restrictive measures for balance of payment problems has declined. Balance of what used to happen was like if there was a balance of payment problem, if your imports and exports are not tallying, then you were getting, then you were able, and you were getting that exception to use the restrictive measures. But WTO has made tremendous progress in this, and now the restrictive measures have been drastically declined, and VOB problems are being solved from a different point of view. And services trade has been brought into multilateral system. This is also one of the biggest achievement of WTO, because service trade was not into the multilateral system. Tariff-based protection has become the norm rather than an exception. Many UDCs have undertaken a radical trade, exchange, and domestic reforms. underdeveloped countries. UDC is nothing but underdeveloped countries. These underdeveloped countries, radical trade, exchange, and domestic reforms. For example, India, it took reforms in 1991. In the same way, the countries like South Korea, Indonesia, Singapore, and Malaysia, Brunei as well. These countries has reformed their economies before India, and they got their results. And the trade policy review mechanism has created a process of continuous monitoring of trade developments. It has been agreed to reduce import tariffs on industrial goods based on Swiss formula. Swiss formula is also one of the very important agreement between various countries that was signed under the aegis of the WTO. This has effect of reducing the import tariffs and making the trade much more accessible and easy. And challenges of the WTO, always there are advantages, there are challenges. The trade reform process is incomplete in many countries. As I told you, many countries have not undertaken the reforms, and few countries who have undertaken the reforms have not completed all its phases. And still, as I said, even in India there should be some kind of trade reforms. The policy and rules appropriate or advantageous to the industrialized world are getting established, the common rules to be obeyed by the developing world as well. There was always allegations on WTO that it works only for the rich countries and developed countries. But now you can see that there are common rules that is established should be obeyed even by America and United Kingdom. The major share of the benefits of WTO has gone to the countries of the north. This is also an allegation that the countries in the north, like Canada, America, the Sweden, Finland, as well as the European countries, the France, Germany, England, Italy, Switzerland. So this is the allegation. This is the challenge, because this has been observed that most of the benefit has gone to these countries. Concerns have been raised that the combination of globalization and technological change, it's really affecting many businesses that to appears to have been at least some reversals in the overall liberalization policies in some developing countries. Though some developing countries did not, though some developing countries never tried to liberalize, but still those who did, they are reversing the procedure, and they are decreasing the liberalization in their country. The WTO has also not been sensitive enough to the development of the non-tariff barriers to import. Though the tariff barriers are regulated, as well as the reduction process has begun and is in place for many years. Now, the non-tariff barriers are the one which the WTO has failed to take into account. The interests of a transnational corporation take precedence over local concerns. The implementation related issues are becoming a source of serious concern. India and WTO, the system helps promote peace, disputes are handled constructively, rules make life easier to all, free trade cuts and cost of living. It provides more choices of products and qualities. Trade rises incomes, trade stimulates economic growth. The basic principles make life more efficient. Governments are shielded from lobbying. The system encourages good government. These are the various issues between, there are some issues. There are some issues between India and WTO, that is agriculture, anti-dumping, subsidies, balance of payment, custom valuation, trims, and regional trade agreements. Thank you guys. This is it. Let me wrap up. See you in the next session.